us work through this initiative. Those are the initiatives that will be the hallmark of our next year of work, and we're very excited about it, and very excited to have you, members and others on this call and elsewhere, to join this effort. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Schreck, our treasurer, to tell the membership meeting where we stand financially.
Thank you, Rick. Again, my name is Matt Schreck, and I've had the honor and pleasure of being treasurer for CCRA for about the last 5 years. And Maggie somewhat stole my thunder in that she let the cat out of the bag in that we're doing very well financially, thanks to the continued support of folks like you, our members, as well as sponsors here in the community. We've actually going to end up this year in the black with a decent amount of money in the bank, particularly for an organization our size. That's a tribute to all the hard work that this board has done this year. This is as fine a group of people as I've ever worked with, and I will indeed miss them. But again, as Maggie and Rick pointed out, CCRA is in very good hands. We've got an excellent slate of board members coming in. And as long as they don't spend all the money next year, I'm confident that CCRA will remain strong, financially solvent, and capable of leading the city and our community into the future. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard Vaughn to advise you on some communications matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Again, my name is Richard Vaughn. I'm happy to share all that we've been doing in the past year in the communication department here at CCRA. But since Attorney General Shapiro may be here, I'm going to limit my remarks to the things we're doing that are actually legal. That said, I'll necessarily be brief. As you know, we have a website, we publish a weekly newsletter, and we utilize the unholy trinity of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now, I could bore you with some web stats, but here's one fact. The industry average is that 22% of people who receive a given email actually ever open it. 22%. The open rate for our newsletter, 61%. That's remarkable. And that's all great, but that's only half the story. Because yes, we talk to you, but we need you to talk to us too. We consider you folks, the members, our boots on the ground. You are our reporters. So tell us what's going on. Tell us what's important to you. Are you involved with a local organization that other members might want to know about? Let us know to spread the word. Does your child or grandchild go to Greenfield? Tell us all about it. Is there a great new art exhibit you love? A great new restaurant? We're all ears. And hey, Philly is a huge sports town. Go Sixers. What's your favorite sports bar? We want to know. So will others. We'll see you there, and the first round's on us. And this, yes, please do point out to us when we're wrong. Hard to believe, I know, but it's been known to happen. We need to know about that too. But I think you get the idea here. It's all about the two-way conversation. So let's do this. You shoot all your information to Travis Oliver, and I can guarantee you he will take it from there. And with that, I yield the floor to our Director of Membership, Michelle Ettinger. Thank you. Yeah. Hello?
Unmute. Michelle.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, what a year we've had for membership. I thank our very active membership committee and board, but mostly all the members Zooming with us tonight. We so appreciate your support. In just this last year, CCRA has seen phenomenal membership growth, up to 30%. Why, you may be thinking? CCRA's mission really matters. Relationships really matter. New initiatives really matter. And we are doing a much better job listening and involving our members. We are stronger in numbers, and that is so critical for CCRA as it strengthens our ability to leverage change. Let's hear about the myriad of new and exciting initiatives the membership committee has orchestrated, like new membership levels and enhanced benefits. Do you know a new resident of Center City West? They are eligible for a 6-month free membership. Have you received a new member warm welcome from a board member? We have created a robust stewardship program so that we can build relationships with members and businesses in the community. We have also begun to offer high-rise building membership opportunities so that we can provide a broader and more diverse voice. We pivoted this year and hosted 2 virtual events to benefit our members. A book event, 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia Before You Die, and a COVID information event, I'm Vaccinated, Now What? Even though these were both wonderful events, I am honestly looking forward to our membership meet and greets, whining, dining, and schmoozing in person, which we hopefully can resume in the coming months. How about our 3 adorable photo challenges on social media that provided a much welcome distraction during those crazy days? And last, most loved by our members, we have expanded our merchant partner program that offers those wonderful deals and discounts. Look for more merchant partners coming this summer. So much is going on and there will be more to come. This is such an exciting time to be a CCRA member, especially as we move forward to help revitalize the city. You can have a hand in our future. Why don't you become involved in a CCRA committee or a volunteer project or help spread the word about CCRA to your friends and neighbors so we can continue our growth and make significant strides to improve our community. Now, I'm going to give the floor back to Maggie.
Unmute. Unmute, Maggie.
Am I speaking now?
Yes, you're good.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we're making great time. We have a couple of business items to take care of. We're going to move on to the bylaws and adopting the bylaws. And I would like to start this discussion by recognizing Elena Capella, who chaired the bylaws committee with about 5 or 6 stalwart lawyers and individuals who are very into the woods when it comes to bylaws. I was on them, but I could not keep up with them. But the result is Elena basically rewrote our bylaws that were, I don't know, last updated in 2016, I think. And you wouldn't think it would require that much effort, but she rewrote them, she reorganized them. They are fantastic and flexible and so much better than they were before. So I just really want to thank Elena for doing that. We are up to date with not-for-profit law. We're up to date with best practices. These are bylaws that are going to last us a long time now. And we have 2 resolutions that we need to, we had no comments on the bylaws, I should say. We distributed them, absolutely no comments on that or the Articles of Incorporation. And so we have a couple of resolutions we're going to want you to vote on in the chat. Travis is going to put a link in the chat, so everybody get into your chat, and we'll there'll be a link for 2 resolutions that we'll need a first and a second on, and then you can vote in the chat by clicking in on these links. And so Travis Oliver has this chat here. It's the Survey Monkey link. Does everybody see that? Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
It's been
Okay,
posted.
so click on that. Uh-oh, I got a free online survey thing.
Do you want me to move the first resolution, Maggie?
Yes, please do, Elena.
All right. First resolution is Article 12 of the proposed bylaws be adopted and Article 12 and 14 of the current bylaws be repealed. This resolution to take effect immediately upon approval.
Do we have a second?
Yes, Matt Schreck seconds.
Thank you. Thank you. Elena, do you want to explain? We need this resolution first so that the bylaws will take effect at the right time.
Yeah,
basically.
mainly because the current bylaws have amendments that taking effect immediately upon approval. And we want to have a bit of a delay so that most of the bylaws won't go into effect until July 1st. So
Right.
that's why we're doing this.
Which is the new fiscal year.
Right.
So we'll give everybody a couple of minutes or a minute. Travis, you can monitor how many people have voted, right? We need 2/3, so please vote yes. We need 2/3 for this amendment of the bylaws. A higher standard than the usual. So,
I think Elena should introduce the second resolution also.
okay, that's a great
Okay,
idea.
so I move the resolution that Articles 1 through 11, Article 13, and Appendix A of the current bylaws be repealed, and Articles 1 through 11 and Articles 13 and 14 of the proposed bylaws be adopted, with the resolution to take effect on July 1, 2021. Is there a second?
This is Rick Gross, I second.
Sounds like Rick sent it, second.
Yeah, Rick and Michelle. Okay, so
You
please-
you can't submit your vote until you voted on both of them.
Right,
Oh, is that right? Okay.
It says submit after you voted on both of them. Click submit and then Travis will get it.
Right.
thank you.
There we go.
Okay, both resolutions have passed, so we're good to go. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Rick Spiesman now to talk about the Articles of Incorporation that we also discovered as part of the bylaws, that we needed to amend the Articles of Incorporation. So he'll just take the floor and explain a little bit about what's going on to that. Rick?
Okay, hello. I
Yes.
was on the committee that revised the bylaws and we were having so much fun. We thought that we should take a look at the Articles of Incorporation as well. We reviewed the Articles of Incorporation, and as a result, we're proposing several changes to the articles. One is a slight revision to the purposes clause, which matches what is in the bylaws that we just approved. We updated the address of our registered office, and we added some language that's necessary for state law and federal
I didn't
income
see the
tax
agenda,
laws.
but they have like quarterly meetings and this was, I don't know if it's
So-
reporting all out if they're gonna have anything good. I don't know.
So you were previously provided access to the old articles and the proposed amendments, provide an opportunity to comment. Because amendments to the articles require the approval of the members, we're going to ask you to approve the changes we have proposed. So I would ask that someone make such a motion.
I so move the approval of the amendment to the articles. It's Rick Gross.
I'll second
A
the
second?
motion. I'll second the motion, Elena Capella.
Thank you. Okay, I see the Survey Monkey is in the chat now. So everybody click on that and vote.
Okay, I didn't really want that at all.
Travis, any update on the voting yet? Well, we have a few minutes before Josh Shapiro is due to join us at 6:30. So I'm going to ask Wade to introduce the new board members and the executive committee. And
Hi,
then
everybody.
hopefully.
My name is Wade Albert, and I am counsel for the Center City Residents Association. Under normal circumstances, I would likely be holding the vote for new officers and directors, but because of these unusual COVID circumstances, we were able to hold the vote virtually before this meeting. And I am pleased to report that as a result of that election, the members voted to elect a slate of new officers for a 2-year term, including President Rick Gross and a number of other officers, the Executive Vice President Rick Speetzman, 4 Vice Presidents, Secretary Treasurer, Assistant Secretary, and Assistant Treasurer. In addition, the members voted for 7 new directors elected to a 3-year term, 3 directors appointed to a 2-year term, and 5 directors appointed to a 1-year term. So the information about who those new officers and directors are will be put on our website. I want to congratulate everyone who is joining our board as a director. I want to congratulate all the officers who are incoming, and I know that we all look forward to working with you. So I will turn that back over to Maggie. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Wade. Yes, I'm very.
Maggie, can I be recognized, please? It's Rick.
Sure.
So Travis, could I get a spotlight? Before we welcome the Attorney General, we want to say a few words as members and as board to Maggie. As you come to the end of a distinguished and outstanding presidency, Maggie, it's appropriate now to honor you for your service. You are leaving a CCRA that is not your father's or mother's CCRA by any circumstance. We are more diverse, we are more forward-looking, and we have an impact that is citywide. We are poised for growth, and we have lots of new members. We are solvent, and we are in great shape. This is a tribute to terrific leadership. And I wonder if we could have a spotlight on Maggie, Travis. Because right now, Maggie, while we don't give gold watches, we do have some very nice gifts for you, which somebody in your family will be bringing to you as we speak. This has been heavily coordinated, trust me. And I would like all of us to recognize what a pleasure it's been to work with you. And personally, I have enjoyed being your wingman, and I would think all of us have enjoyed having you as our president. So why don't we all unmute and give Maggie an ovation for a job very, very, very well done. Thank you, Maggie.
Oh, thank you, you guys. This is too much.
Thank you, Maggie.
Really too much. Oh, wow, look at this. Oh, a beautiful earring. They are really lovely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh. And from a jeweler, a local jeweler on Chestnut Street. And some gorgeous flowers. I don't know if you can see these.
Take down the background. Somebody could do that.
I can do that. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so there's the flowers. You see them? Yeah, really gorgeous. Thank you so much, you guys.
And there's the first husband.
Yeah.
And the last.
Yeah.
First last and best, Gordon.
Yes. Well, that was a complete surprise. Thank you so much. They're lovely. And the resolution on the articles have passed also. So yay us. Thank you so much. Still waiting on Josh, I guess.
I'm getting a big sign on in the room that in the neon, and it's gonna say Hannah and Ben sleep here.
Josh on.
What about that, Travis?
I don't see Josh Shapiro on.
Oh, as is Alex with AG Shapiro staff, he will be on shortly. Thanks. Okay. Okay, so he will be on shortly. I suppose I can get started on the introduction to give him as much time as possible because he really is quite an incredible and interesting person. It'll be my pleasure to introduce him. Josh Shapiro, after reading his website, and I looked at a lot of online stuff, I was not surprised to learn that he became the first freshman to be elected the student body president of the University of Rochester. He was so obviously destined for public service and politics from a very early age. And so he went to the University of Rochester, graduated in 1995, worked on Capitol Hill as a staff member for several congressmen, including Chief of Staff to Congressman Joe Huffle. While in DC, he also enrolled in the Georgetown University Law Center as an evening student and earned a JD degree in 2002. So no partying for Josh, work all day, work all night. It seems to fit his MO from well, all he has achieved so far. He returned hometown in Montgomery County, married his high school sweetheart. I understand they're still married and have 4 young children. Immediately began his first of 4 terms in the Pennsylvania State House in 2004, where he was a deputy speaker, not just one of the schlubs on the floor, but a deputy speaker. In 2011, he was elected as a county commissioner in Montgomery County, I think the wealthiest, one of the most populous counties, in Pennsylvania. And while there, he helped the first LGBT couples in Pennsylvania marry. So he's a hard worker, he's progressive. And he's our Attorney General, elected in 2016. And since then, he has been so busy. Now, I have a long list of accomplishments. This is an edited list, but still long. But I just felt that these issues would resonate with our members. He has tackled a lot of different issues over the years, and they're all very interesting. So here's the highlights. He joined with other attorneys generals in opposing Donald Trump's Muslim travel ban. He filed a lawsuit to block a rule that would have made it easier for employers to deny health insurance coverage of contraceptives. He joined a lawsuit against IT&T Technical Institute for a for-profit educational institute that resulted in $5 million getting returned to Pennsylvania students who got debt without degrees. He reached an agreement with the federal officials to prevent the distribution of blueprints for 3D printed firearms. Well, there's an issue close to our hearts, right? And that was just in his first term, and he just ran for a second term in 2020. And in the last year alone, he joined a coalition of 48 attorneys general in a suit alleging that Facebook is a monopoly, doing all it can to stifle competition, including local media, prey on smaller companies, and punish anyone it can't buy through cutting off access to services and information. He negotiated an agreement with the largest gun show promoter in Pennsylvania to halt the sale of partially assembled guns, which don't have serial numbers and are untraceable. Another issue near and dear to our hearts. He brought several lawsuits against companies accused of seeking excessive profits during the COVID emergency, including a $75 bottles of hand sanitizer. Outrageous. People will do anything to make a profit, won't they? And this is another great one. I just read about this in the Inquirer on Sunday. Did anyone see that article about Kensington? It hasn't gotten any better, it doesn't sound like. $1 million corners. But anyway, Josh has developed the Kensington Initiative, a coalition of federal, state, and local investigators who meet weekly to share information about drug rings in Kensington. To date, it has dismantled 5 Kensington heroin networks. In the latest bust, 35 people from 3 drug organizations were arrested and charged with dealing, carrying illegal weapons, and participating in corrupt organizations. The Kensington Initiative is also partnering with Temple University criminal justice researchers to see if their efforts are helping in a community where drug sales are perhaps the more concentrated than anywhere else in the nation. So he's, data-driven, effective, efficient. It's all good stuff. And finally, the last thing I'll talk about, he organized a statewide.
Maggie, you're not going to leave me with anything, but you
Conviction
keep going.
Integrity Unit. Providing a resource for people wrongly convicted of crimes in Pennsylvania counties which lack the resource to properly analyze past convictions. So let me tell you, clearly throughout his career in public service, Josh has been unafraid to challenge the status quo, fight to improve the lives of Pennsylvanians. I wish all the politicians were as effective as Josh Shapiro. So take it away, Josh.
Hey, Maggie, thank you so much. That was really, really kind. And it's so awesome to be with you. I can confirm to everybody, I am indeed still married to my high school sweetheart. We celebrated 24 years, not yesterday, I guess it was 2 days ago. And we celebrated with a romantic takeout dinner on our back patio and told our 4 kids to stay away from us for 45 minutes. So that was how we celebrate in the midst of this chaotic world. But I'm really glad to be with all of you. And obviously, I wish we could be together in person. I hope everybody is safe and healthy and getting their vaccines. And I hope if you'll invite me, I'd love to come back and do something in person as time goes on. But what I'd love to do, Maggie, I know you're the president, so you get to decide the ground rules, but maybe if I could just talk for a few minutes on a few topics I think might be interesting and then open it up to questions. I'd really love to spend our time in a dialogue if that's okay with you.
No, that would be great. What we would like to do is to have people type your questions in the chat, and we're monitoring the chat. Sure. And then Rick Gross will be asking the questions.
Perfect. We'll do that. And
Okay.
Let me touch on a few things. First off, I couldn't be more honored to serve as your Attorney General, now twice elected Attorney General of Pennsylvania. When I ran the first time, I ran on a platform of trying to expand the role of this office to not just lock up drug dealers on street corners, which is important to get those poisons out of our neighborhoods, but take on big, bold fights like holding the pharmaceutical companies accountable in that process for their role in manufacturing the crisis. We talked about being smart on crime, particularly when it comes to gun violence. I'll come back to that in a minute. We talked about creating new work or new divisions within my office that would work to deal with serious problems. So for the first time ever, we have a unit that focuses strictly on environmental protection. I'm the first Attorney General that's ever brought criminal charges against fracking companies, for example. We've got the first ever division that focuses on protecting workers in what's known as our Fair Labor Division. And I just brought the largest wage theft and worker misclassification case in the history of the United States against a major employer in Center County, which is in the middle of our state, where Penn State is. These are examples of where we've tried to expand the mission and the role of this office. We breathe new life into our Civil Rights Division. And sadly, we're seeing more and more cases of ethnic intimidation, attacks against people of color, attacks against Jews, attacks against Muslims, and our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. So many people being targeted, and that division is very busy. We worked really hard to build the strongest, smartest, most diverse staff in the history of the Office of Attorney General in Pennsylvania. I'm a strong believer that if you want to bring about real criminal justice reform and you're in a role like mine, well, you damn well better start by cleaning your house and making sure your house is in order. And so today I'm proud of the fact that we have people of color leading our agent corps. And for those of you who are not as familiar with my office, unlike the federal government where you have a U.S. attorney and the FBI, in the AG's office, we have both married together, agents and lawyers, all under one roof, all under my control. We have more women in positions of leadership than men. For the first time ever, our LGBTQ community is represented at the most senior levels of leadership within my office. And as a result of that, we've not only been able to make more fair and just decisions, we've been able to lead the way on important criminal justice reform. For example, we did away with cash bail 2.5 years ago in my office. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. We did it. We've been out front on making sure that justice is not just being done going forward, but Maggie, as you mentioned, we started the first ever statewide conviction integrity unit to go back and look at old cases and make sure that the prosecutors who preceded me actually got it right. We started the first ever reentry council because we recognize that returning citizens have to be an important part of the conversation going forward in this community, and so on and so forth. We've done a lot of work there internally in trying to change our system. And, I say this every single day, and I'll repeat it here. My job is to make sure that the rule of law applies fairly and equally across the board, no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you love, who you pray to, or who you choose not to pray to. And that has to be at the center of everything we do in the Attorney General's office. And it is. It's why during the former president's administration, I went to court over 24 times because he violated the rule of law. He specifically targeted members of our community. He undermined our constitutional rights. And whether it was reproductive rights or the rights of immigrants or the right of our, that we have under Article 1, Section 27 of our state constitution to clean air and pure water. When I sued the former president, I won and I protected your rights. And so that was an important part of the work that we did. We also recognize that, to be effective, you got to have your boots on the ground and you've got to recognize the challenges in a community. So Maggie, you talked, for example, about the Kensington Initiative, where, we've really focused on trying to not just root out the high level drug dealers, and we've had a lot of success on that, as the article said, but then we've worked with the social services agencies in the city to make sure that after we leave, and we've done that work on the law enforcement side, that they can come in and actually make sure that the kids are getting the mental health services that they need, that the families are getting the help they need. By the way, that the streets are just simply cleaned up from the drug paraphernalia and things like that. So that's a unique partnership we have with Philadelphia. And while Kensington has so much more work that we need to do there, I was just there this weekend at a gun buyback. I can tell you that we're having an impact, and it's been positive growth there. I also have to tell you that, from my perspective, the gun violence that we're seeing in the city of Philadelphia is absolutely unacceptable. And I am unwilling to accept this as a new normal. Now, I've got more limited jurisdiction as compared to the police commissioner or the district attorney. My role when it comes to combating gun violence is to be able to deal with major gun trafficking organizations. Those are those people who are bringing guns into our city. And so we have forged some really important initiatives that have helped shut down a number of gun trafficking organizations. I partnered with Gerbir Graywall, the Attorney General of New Jersey, and we've worked to shut down the pipeline between Camden and Philadelphia, and took a number of organizations out there and are now sharing data to be able to track and trace these guns across the river. I also recognized, really 3 years ago, the emerging threat in Philadelphia, and indeed in places like Hazleton and Erie and Harrisburg and other communities across Pennsylvania, the emerging threat of something called ghost guns. And I want to take a minute on this because this is probably the most important issue related to gun violence that you've not heard a lot about. These are guns that are purchased in two parts, essentially a lower and an upper. And you buy them complete with the screws and the nuts and all that you need to put the gun together and make it a working handgun within just a couple minutes of assembly time. And I can tell you, even I can assemble one. And as my kids will tell you, I'm not the handiest of guys. Well, you should ask yourself, why the hell would someone want to buy a gun in two parts when they could just buy a regular gun? Because when you're buying a gun in two parts under state and federal law, it's not considered a gun. And when it's not considered a gun, what don't you have to go through to get it, Maggie? You don't have to go through a background check. And so criminals, we found out through our surveillance and our undercover work, were going to gun shows in Montgomery County and Berks County and other communities in the Philadelphia surrounds. And they were literally buying these by the dozens, filling up duffel bags full of them. And then we would trace them back to row homes in Philadelphia where they were assembling them and selling them for about 100, 110% profit on the streets. Now, once they're assembled and they're working handguns, then they're being given to criminals who otherwise would not be able to get them. So I've been working for years on this issue. I issued legal guidance as the Attorney General, regulating them as regular guns in Pennsylvania. I got sued by the NRA and other gun lobbies. I pushed the former president to move on it. I pushed candidate Biden and now President Biden to move on it. Thankfully, President Biden has now moved on this issue and has put forth regulations saying ghost guns should just simply be treated as firearms. So if you're not a prohibited purchaser, you want to buy one, go, God bless you, you can buy one. But if you're a prohibited purchaser, if you're a criminal, and we all say we want to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, you will not be able to buy them under the new Biden regulations. In fact, I just testified in front of the US Senate last week, 2 weeks ago, on this very topic. I got into it with Ted Cruz, who's just an absolute wackadoodle. But anyway, this is a massive challenge in Philadelphia. There are thousands of these guns that are unserialized, untraceable, and in the hands of criminals. And so not only are we working on the legal side of this, we negotiated a deal, as Maggie mentioned, with the largest gun show promoter who was selling about 40,000 of these a year. And he agreed to stop selling them in Pennsylvania, which is going to keep tens of thousands of guns off our streets in Philadelphia. Look, a lot more needs to be done. Everybody has a responsibility. Me, the mayor, the police commissioner, the state legislature, the governor, everybody does. And we've got a responsibility to work together on this. And I'm trying, of course, to do my part. Look, I'll just say this. I'll touch on one other topic, and then Rick, I'll turn it to you because I know everybody has questions they want to ask. There are so many challenges that we face today, from the opioid crisis to gun violence, to student debt, to healthcare access, to housing security. And by the way, I've been really, really proud to work with Helen Gim and some others on this wonderful initiative in Philadelphia to keep people in their homes by basically creating a wonderful arbitration system between the landlords and the tenants, utilizing federal dollars that already exist to keep people in their homes. We can talk more about that in Q&A, but housing security is a big issue for me as well. The thing I want to say, though, is with all of these big challenges that we face, I think we are somewhat paralyzed as a nation to be able to deal with them, to be able to grapple with them, if we don't honestly confront the big lie that still exists in our Commonwealth and in our country. The people who still think that the election was rigged, the people who still think that there was voter fraud. And I should state for the record, as the chief law enforcement officer, Maggie, there were 3 incidents of voter fraud that we found in Pennsylvania. And in all 3 cases, they were trying to vote 1 extra vote for Donald Trump. There was no widespread voter fraud like Trump and his allies suggest. Yet this big lie that I've been very outspoken about, it continues to permeate our democracy. It's toxic to our democracy, and it makes it almost impossible to come together and solve these big issues because you have a large group of people, certainly many Republican elected officials, who are just simply unwilling to accept reality because they're so darn scared of Donald Trump. So what I've tried to do in my role, number one, is to hold the lawyers accountable who brought this big lie to our courts in the Commonwealth. And I've moved for sanctions against Rudy Giuliani and several other lawyers who perpetuated the big lie here. I'm working to speak truth in communities all across Pennsylvania, communities that agree with me and communities that disagree with me, so that they know what actually happened. And it's my firm belief that unless we speak some truth and get back to some of those basic core understandings, it's going to be very difficult going forward to be able to satisfy or to deal with these big problems. And so in the interim, while this big lie permeates and infects our politics and infects our democracy, what you're really seeing from many Republican elected leaders is an unwillingness to deal with serious issues like our schools, like gun violence, like we talked about before. And instead, they just keep putting forth divisive things to try and make it harder for people to exercise their right to vote, make it harder, for example, for women to be able to make choices over their own bodies. I was with Governor Wolf today in Narberth, Pennsylvania, talking about this issue. But for the veto pen of a Democratic governor in Pennsylvania, all of the same voting restrictions and restrictions on abortion that you're seeing pass in places like Georgia and Texas would be happening right here in Pennsylvania. And so what I'm trying to do on multiple tracks is, number one, solve these issues. Number two, speak truth on the underlying issues of the big lie. And number three, be a backstop to protect your rights and ensure that no lawmaker in Harrisburg, no lawmaker in Washington, or others are able to undermine those rights. So we're busy doing all this work. I love this work. I'm honored to do it. I'm grateful for the support that so many of you, as I flip through the Zoom, I see so many familiar faces. I'm grateful for the support you've shown me. And it's the honor of my lifetime to serve the people of Pennsylvania in this role. So with that, Rick, let me turn it back to you. There's probably a ton of issues that we could talk about that I didn't touch on, and I look forward to your questions.
So great, General. We really appreciate your attendance. As you might imagine, there's a lot of political questions, but we're a 501c3 organization. So I can't ask you directly about your future plans. We all read the papers, and our audience is very interested in what you have to say. One thing that a person asked about is a message that's been permeating that Governor Wolf used his emergency powers to cost the state a fortune during the COVID. Can you address and of course, then there was the new referendum about limiting his powers to a few weeks. Can you address your sense of how the emergency powers were used and whether there was excess use that cost us a huge amount of money?
Yeah. So did you tease that political question to make me not answer it? Is that sort of what happened at first? You don't
Yes,
want me to
that's
answer?
exactly right.
Okay, I got it. So just to be clear for the record, I'm not the one being coy. Rick is the one being coy. So you can all blame him. No, look, I don't know what the questioner means by sort of costing us money. Obviously, as a result of this pandemic, we saw record explosive unemployment. Businesses were shut down, not necessarily in a manner that that I would have recommended or I would have done, but businesses were shut down, schools were shut down, people weren't able to work. Some of the privileged folks were able to work via Zoom and work from home, but I think we saw laid bare in this process. So many people, especially poor folks, Black and brown folks, were forced to go to work in those early days without proper PPE. And by the way, they were also the ones who couldn't get access to a test, and for many of them couldn't get access early on to vaccines. I think COVID really laid bare a lot of the inequities and a lot of the challenges that we face as a society. And I think as I go forward, certainly, I'm going to be talking a lot about those inequities. I'm going to be talking a lot about how we have schools that are just a couple miles from the city of Philadelphia who were able to adequately educate their kids during COVID, yet in Philadelphia, so many kids fell behind. I'm going to be talking a lot about the fact that certain workers were deemed essential and forced into dangerous situations, then lost their jobs and are now part of the gig economy where they've got very few protections available to them. We've got to really rethink how workers are treated and protected in this country. I think we've got to recognize that we relied way too much on China for goods and services that helped us deal with the virus. And we need to be focused a lot more on how we do more manufacturing here at home. We need to be looking at how the social services simply were not there for people who are in need, whether it's those with disabilities or kids who are dealing with serious mental health issues. There are so many issues that were wrapped up in COVID, so many issues of inequity that were laid bare that I think we need to focus on for many years to come. Long after the virus, God willing, is gone, we're going to be dealing and grappling with these issues of inequality. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about that going forward.
Well, here's a COVID-related question, General. Because you dealt with price gouging and unfair practices during COVID that hurt local and small businesses, particularly minority businesses, somebody wants to know what they should be looking for as they start shopping publicly to boost the economy. Are there certain triggers that they should avoid? Is there advice you can give us to not make it worse as we get back into the economy?
Well, technically what price gouging is, I don't totally want to nerd out on you, but I will tell you is where the price of goods go up a certain percentage once the emergency declaration comes, based on what the price was the week before the emergency declaration. So it was pretty clear that, a little $2 thing of Purell that was selling for $48, that was price gouging. We dealt with hundreds of these cases and were able to shut it down in those early days. As the emergency declarations go away, those price gouging laws really won't be in effect. What I think a lot of consumers are seeing now, with the increased price of goods, is sort of a phantom inflation that has more to do with the global economy, more to do with supply and demand issues than anything else. You're seeing things like plywood and other raw materials really exploding. That is less about price gouging, and I think more about supply and demand issues as economies come back online after, a year or so of dormancy and stagnation.
Another small p political question. People want to know, is there a threat that the integrity of our 2020 election is going to be challenged by the cyber ninjas of the world? People were very pleased with how much you put yourself out to protect the integrity of the election and defend it. Do you see threats on the post-election side besides the big lie that you need to be aware of, that we should also be aware of?
Look, 19 times before a single one of you cast your vote, Donald Trump and his allies sued us in Pennsylvania to make it harder for you to vote. And Rick, they weren't trying to make it harder for people who look like you and me to vote. They were trying to make it hard for our Black and brown communities to vote. They did that 19 times. We won every single time. After your votes were cast, 8:01 p.m. came and the polls were closed. They sued us 22 more times. We won again. And then, of course, all of the rhetoric, all of those lawsuits then led directly to the insurrection on January the 6th. And you could draw a straight line between that conduct and what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. Post January 6th, you have seen the activity shift to state legislatures. You've seen what happened in Georgia and in Texas, where they've tried to take away, successfully, not tried, they've successfully been able to take away people's right to vote, make it harder for people to vote. I want to make very clear that all of those same bills, many of those same bills, I should state, that were passed in Georgia, that were passed in Texas, they were introduced here in Pennsylvania. And but for the fact that we have a Democratic governor, this is lowercase p, Rick, not capital P politics, Rick, but for the fact that we have a Democratic governor who has pledged to veto those bills, and it's important that we make sure that we always have a governor that would veto those bills, but for that veto pen, you would see the same things happening here. And so you're really seeing two fronts of the battle that started a year ago and has been going on. One is to use state lawmakers to change the rules of the game and make it harder for you to vote. And then two, these, can I say bullshit on this? These bullshit audits with the ninja cyber people and all those others. And I will just be very clear, and I think you've seen me in action protecting the vote. I will not let that happen here, period. You do not need to worry. You should worry that they're going to try. You should not worry that they're going to be successful. They will not be successful on my watch here.
Thank you. We promised your staff we'd let you go at 7, but I have a lot more questions. Could you give us a
I'll
couple
take a
more
couple
minutes?
more. Yeah.
So here's an interesting.
I'm jumping on some with the police commissioner after this, so I'll stay for a couple more minutes. Yep.
This is much more important. So
I'll tell her you said that.
Yeah, here's a question from an LGBTQ member who says that their safety and security is directly tied to their zip code. But being out and outside the borders of a city like Philadelphia could lead to someone losing their job, their home, or even their life. Is there some place in their office that they can engage to stay protected and report potential hate crimes? This is an interesting but very, very real issue. How do you respond?
I mean, look, it's a very real issue, and I thank the questioner for asking, particularly on the eve of Pride Month, which is in what, 2 days, 3 days, something like that, 4 days. And look, from my perspective, every month is Pride Month. We stand firm against ethnic intimidation. We stand firm against attacks against anyone, whether it's our LGBTQ community or others. And I firmly believe that an attack against one makes us all less safe. I said that hours after the massacre at Tree of Life in Pittsburgh, when I stood on the streets of Pittsburgh. I've said that many times as we've seen attacks against immigrants and Muslims and people of color and Jews and our LGBTQ community. I recognize that attack against one makes us all less safe. And so if you believe that you've been subject to a threat, an act of ethnic intimidation, whatever it is, big or small, and that's what I want to really stress, like, don't wait for it to become such a big thing. If there's even little things, I want you to report it. And here's what I want you to do. If there is some urgency to it, if there is a direct threat, I want you to call 911. If you feel as though there's not a direct threat, but you still want law enforcement to know about it, we've tried to create a structure where there's just simply no wrong door. You can contact my office. You can contact the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. File the report with us. It's real quick. It's online, but it allows us to then know who said what to you, or where it happened, or what the nature of the action or threat was, so that we can monitor it. We can hold that person accountable if the law allows, and we can see if there's a pattern in practice. Typically, there is that pattern in practice. We take this stuff really seriously. And as it relates to the LGBTQ community, I'll just note that as a freshman lawmaker, Maggie talked about my resume. I was a freshman lawmaker in 2005. I see Jonathan, who wants to run for the state house, and there's others who I know are looking at running for various offices. 2005, I was trying to amend our hate crimes law to include gender identity and sexual orientation. And some of these backwards thinking folks in Harrisburg still haven't gotten that damn thing passed. It's ridiculous. It's outrageous. It's an embarrassment for our state. And it's something that needs to change. And I will tell you, I will continue to push the envelope. Right now, they only let me enforce the laws, not make them. This job would be even cooler, Rick, if I could make the laws too. But we've got to make sure that those issues are added, not just to statute, but ultimately I'd like to see them added to our state constitution.
One of the things that we've done increasingly well is have social media presence. But our social media people want your views on the monopoly questions associated with Facebook and the like. I know it's more often a federal issue, but you want to talk a little bit about what you think about that?
Yeah, actually, it's been a big state issue. I've partnered with a number of attorneys general on massive investigations into Facebook and Google. I'm not sure it's prudent for me to get into the details of our investigation now, but I will tell you I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about their monopolistic powers. I'm very concerned about the way they're able to shut down, make it much harder for news organizations to function because of the way they do advertising. I'm obviously incredibly concerned about the way the platforms can be manipulated to spread false information. I took Facebook and Twitter most recently to task on this vaccine issue, where they were spreading false information about the vaccine. Obviously, I'd like to see everybody get vaccinated. It's a personal choice. I've made clear what my views are, but I have no patience for people who peddle absolute lies and things that are scientific falsehoods and then get amplified through the power of a platform like Facebook. So I take these issues very seriously. I expect our investigation will go on here for some time, but know that I take that very seriously. I'm also I've been working a lot on the issues of data breaches on those platforms as well. You may remember Cambridge Analytica and that whole issue in the 2016 presidential campaign. We've been the lead state on that, and how your information that you give to Facebook, which you willingly give them, you put your pictures up there, you put your information up there, but I know you didn't willingly give it to Cambridge Analytica to allow them to then try and turn around and manipulate the 2016 election. So how those third parties are able to use your information is something that we've spent a lot of time working on as well. So a lot of different pieces here as it relates to big tech, but I could tell you that another example, my office had no one working on these issues till I took office. Now we've got a really important unit focused on cyber and tech issues, doing really good work.
So let's, if you'll indulge us for one more, there's a different topic that I think people have a lot of interest in. Although we know that the public school issue principally is a local issue, plainly state aid and the aid formula all influence how well our schools do. Can you talk a little bit about the state relationship to the Philadelphia schools and what you see as the most effective things that can be done to prop up a system that obviously needs help?
Yeah, well, let me be very clear as the chief lawyer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're not meeting our constitutional mandate to the children of Philadelphia and some other districts as well for what the Constitution requires as a thorough, quote, thorough and efficient education. So I'll be very blunt. I'm not going to mince words about that. There is a lawsuit that's going through the system right now that that is seeking to prove that in court. I'm giving you my opinion. I think we need to put more money into the fair funding formula so that these zip codes that have been significantly underfunded for years have better opportunities for those kids. Look, I live a few miles away from Philadelphia. My kids have all the blessings in the world that kids just a few miles away don't have just because of their zip code. That's not only not fair, I don't think that that is constitutional. And so I think it must be addressed. Now, I don't fund the schools in this job, but here's what I have said to lawmakers and the governor who do fund it. You properly fund those schools, I'll have a lower caseload. The police commissioner and DA Krasner will have a lower caseload because it all starts with a quality education. You give these kids a quality education, there will be less crime in our communities. Period, hard stop, end of sentence. And it is, if you think about it, it's a wise investment, right? We can invest a few $1,000s more on the front end in these schools and save $44,000 a year on a prison on the back end. And I think it's just, whether you look at this from a fiscal perspective, whether you look at it from a humanitarian perspective, whether you look at it from a constitutional right perspective, we've got to do better by our school children. Now, I spent a lot of time talking to Dr. Haidt about these issues. And we've got to do a lot in addition to funding. And so one of the things I've tried to do is use the power of my platform and the relationships I have with people to start a program in the school district of Philadelphia where we spend a week with these students and expose them to all the major employers who occupy those tall buildings a couple miles away from their neighborhoods. Tall buildings, by the way, that even though they're only a couple miles away from their school, from their row homes and their neighborhoods, they've never been in those buildings. Those buildings could be a million miles away from them. And so for a week a year, we bring those students into those buildings and we make them meet these professionals, not just the CEOs, but the people who are doing the work that these students can do. I'll give you a great example of a young woman from Kensington who every day after a long day of school would have to figure out how to safely get home to her house and then cooked for her mother, who was very ill. She had all kinds of illnesses that required a special diet. We took this 11th grader to Aramark, right? Big major company in Philadelphia. She never heard of it, saw the building, roughly. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but you probably see Center City from where she was. I'm not sure if you saw that particular building. Took her in there. She met a food scientist for the first time. And after, I always go back and debrief with the kids after they have their week. I said, what was remarkable to you? She goes, I had no idea there were food scientists. She goes, I have to cook for my mom because of her illness. She goes, I want to stay in school. I want to graduate and I want to grow up to be a food scientist. So I can cook for my mom and I can cook for other people like her who were in that situation. These are good kids. We got to invest in these kids and we've got to expose them to opportunities. And we got to let them know that we give a shit about their future. Last Friday night, I took my kids and I went down to the Christie Rec Center where 2 weeks earlier, a 16-year-old had been shot dead right at that Christie Rec Center. And I played basketball with those kids. I didn't tell them who I was. I just showed up and played basketball with them. And then afterwards, we had a little life chat. The point is, those kids need role models in their communities. They need adults in their communities to show them that they care. So whether it's at the Christie Rec Center, the Philadelphia School District, or anywhere in the city, let's invest in these kids. Let's show them that we care. Let's give them an opportunity to be successful in their future, they can be successful. And I'm unwilling to write them off and say that it's some kind of lost generation, as some policymakers in Harrisburg would. We're going to invest in these kids. We're going to care about these kids, and we're going to show them that constitutional requirement of thorough and efficient counts not just for my kids, but them as well.
Well, General, you've been more than generous with your time. There are many more questions, but I think we're going to accept your invitation to come back
I'd love
so that we can continue to talk with you. We appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Maggie. Thank you so much. We appreciate what you do for us as our Attorney General.
I appreciate you guys very much, and I see your clapping hands and your smiling faces, and I look forward to seeing you on the streets and then your community centers real soon. We'll get together. Maggie, you just work with our team, and maybe this fall we can do something in person. Okay?
That would be awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
See you soon.
That was a great talk. You're even more impressive in Zoom person than your website even led me to believe.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. And that's it. CCRA Zoom annual meeting. Business is all concluded. Thank you so much for coming and my wonderful presence. Oh my gosh, I was so surprised. It was just wonderful. Thank you. And we'll call it a wrap. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, great. Stay safe out there, everybody. Have a great long weekend. It's Memorial Day. Yay! We survived COVID. It's great. Really a wonderful spring. So thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, Maggie.